My colleague Bonnie Tunya spoke to Juliana Rotich, Executive Director at Ushahidi in Nairobi, to still understand from your perspective what were the main lessons. Take a look.
Juliana, there's a lot of excitement that obviously came with the summit. Let's start from your point of view as an innovator, why your expectations met by this particular summit.
My expectations were met and actually exceeded, I think. We heard from not just the leaders of Kenya, but also the leader of the United States.
Right.
And both of them underscored the importance of entrepreneurship and changing the environment for innovators as perhaps a different development strategy that is looking at empowering people from the ground up.
Right.
I think that was extremely powerful. And also what we saw was bringing together of innovators and entrepreneurs from all over Africa.
Right.
So that cemented Kenya's role, not just as a leader in technology, but also as a very important hub for the rest of Africa.
Right.
I think the conversations, the networks, the deals that were sealed will only bode well for our economy in the coming decades.
Right. There's a lot of big money conversation, Juliana, at the summit, and obviously there were reports of a few buyouts that happened. But from where you sit, do you think the young people and particularly innovators were particularly ready for this sort of new money, new partnerships that came with the summit?
I think readiness, it's a continuum because there were different types of investors. There were institutional investors,
right,
and there were also impact investors. If you read what Steve Case said about the types of entrepreneurs that he and his foundation were looking at investing in, you can see a whole range.
Right.
So you also had people who were acting as angel investors. Even local angel investors were
Right.
part of the conversation.
Right.
So I think readiness, there are different levels that entrepreneurs can take funding. They can take funding at very base, at the start of their companies,
Right,
where they have a prototype and they have a market, and there's some growing companies, small and medium enterprises. This is where a lot of jobs are created, by the way.
Right.
Not so much, a lot more jobs are created by small and medium enterprises, and those ones need different types of investors. The great thing is there was a mix for all varying levels of readiness,
Right,
by the entrepreneurs.
You mentioned that, and there's a lot of conversation because ultimately this summit and a lot of other conversations that are currently happening were anchored on empowering women or getting women at the front seat in this whole discussion. And you've been a champion of just building awareness and helping women get, especially in innovation. How are we faring in that regard?
There's more to do. I think one of the key things that we have to think about when it comes to the question and the conversation about gender parity or inclusion of women,
Right.
is that we need to look at our systems. We need to look at our current environment. Are we including women as part of the foundational way we do things? It just doesn't happen like that.
Right.
We need to have women co-founders. We need to have women in our boardrooms, particularly for big companies here in Kenya and
Right.
Africa.
Right.
It's important to diversify. That diversity of experience, of thought, and strategy is very, very important for the success of not just small enterprises, but also large companies.
Right. Let's now look at, yes, we had a lot to celebrate and there's a lot that has been done in the innovative space in Kenya, but how do we deepen this? Because we need to offer these opportunities to other innovators in other counties. This was largely a Nairobi affair, and a lot of the well-documented efforts in innovation and entrepreneurship are really Nairobi or on Ngong Road even. How do we take this beyond the county to the rest of the country?
This is about scaling, scaling our work, and not just the tech hubs,
Right.
because we've started to see the emergence of entrepreneurs and networks in county levels.
Right.
I'll give 2 examples. There's Lake Hub in Kisumu,
Right.
and Swahili Box
Okay.
in Mombasa. They are led by people who were part of the Nairobi ecosystem, and they saw the need to extend that work into the counties. On an Africa level, the World Bank estimates that there are now over 90 hubs
Wow.
that have sprung up and
Right.
have looked at the iHub model and are doing really amazing things from Johannesburg all the way up to Tunisia.
Right.
So it's
So this is happening.
it is happening.
Right.
What is needed is more rocket fuel for those ecosystems. Let's support them, be it from the private sector or foundations.
Right.
It's really important to acknowledge the role of creating these spaces for serendipity,
Right.
for support for entrepreneurs.